And in my synagogue here in Sacramento, people don't normally do it. And I wanted to do it in the past, and I'm self-conscious. I'm worried about what people are going to think of me, even though it's a meaningful thing for me to do. So I love that, I love that speech. So it was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing the possibilities for a different kind of intimacy, especially when you've been developing it. That's wonderful. Yeah, Jeannie.
So I'm outside in my garden, which is where I've been doing the Hitbodedut, and it just seemed like a natural place to be davening. It's also the place where we made my daughter's chuppah back earlier in shelter in place for a very, very intimate wedding. So the space is kind of sanctified, but I found that it was very intimate, and I participated in the contemplative, Nativot Shalom's contemplative, both Shacharit and Musaf with you, Dorothy, and it felt extremely intimate being out here. And again, Judah, not having the Zoom box distractions for those particular services. So that really worked for me and allowed me to speak too, being outside.
Wonderful. And that also speaks to the idea of finding a makom, right? Finding a place that you daven or even walk for your hitbodedut, because what it does is it just signals to the body and to the spirit, oh, this is what we do when we're here, right? And that can be difficult for many of us when we're just using the same space for so many different things. But I found that even just doing a simple ritual of, putting a tablecloth over the table, or, somehow saying to yourself something before you're starting, all of these things just clue us into, this is what we're doing. And then the space itself starts to help us get in, because the muscle memory's built up. Wonderful. Any other? Yeah, Ruth.
I found myself in a very emotional place. I think I'm just emotional now. It was the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the fear of the election.
Yeah.
That combined with not being in community and having, I really missed that. But it touched me in an emotional way that really surprised me.
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. I believe that many of us had that experience of somehow, even though we knew it was coming when it was actually Rosh Hashanah, and of course with the death of Justice Ginsburg, it just felt like such a 1-2 punch, all that we had expected, and then, all that we couldn't expect, and our fears. And, if anything, I hope that what this practice has helped us to understand and even engage is that we can bring all of that, right, to our prayer life, actually in a very direct way. And of course, Rebbe Nachman would say, and does say, if you're just crying, then that's probably the truest prayer you can offer, right? Even without words, just weeping. And probably many of us had moments where, if we didn't know that Hamelech, the prayer that's trying to tell us we're not in control, right, is true. Like the events of these months have certainly just made it clearer and clearer. So thank you for saying that. Yeah, Stuart.
Yeah, I was, excuse me, I was surprised after the first day or two of Rosh Hashanah. I was a little disappointed because I couldn't imagine why my Hitbodedut communication with Hashem was any different than the communication before Rosh Hashanah. And I didn't want to force the issue or dwell on it too much, but I know I felt a little frustrated the first day or two. But sure enough, by day 3, I knew I was in Yomim Noraim, and I knew that something had changed in the environment between myself and God. And each day it just became easier to focus on what is so different about this time between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And I was really thankful that I was taught, to do this.
I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, Stuart. And it's another reminder that part of spiritual practice, whatever you're doing, is kind of highs and lows. And sometimes it feels like it's working, and then, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it feels like it's not working anymore. And you feel like I'm done with this, or am I doing something wrong? And it's just a matter of what practice is. Sometimes, it comes up, sometimes it comes down. And especially, Stuart, I really relate to your feeling about, like, right after Rosh Hashanah, why is it not working right now? And I will confess that every year I know that all of the changes are coming to the Amidah for these 10 days, right? Like Zochreinu and an extra Micha Mocha, like all of these little interpolations in the Amidah that I say 3 times a day. And I know they're coming, but it's so habituated, it always takes me, and I'm like, oh wait, did I remember the HaMelech HaKadosh instead of the Ha'el HaKadosh? And it's so awkward and clunky, right? And sometimes I feel like right about by this time when it's almost over, I'm like, it's just until it's almost over that I'm finally getting it. And then it's just going to change again, right? And I just want to say that I've come to understand that this is actually a part of the process, that it's about disruption, and it's about not feeling in the flow, because you're supposed to be taking yourself out of what was normally happening. And so I actually think not only is it a normal ebb and flow of practice, but when there's a big holiday or change in your life, it makes absolute sense that there's going to be some kind of disconcertedness, right? Until you reconnect. But what I found in my own practice, and what I hope for everyone, though it can not be this sometimes, is that when you do find yourself reconnecting, you can do it, you find it just happens sort of at a different level, at a deeper level, right? Sometimes. So sometimes there's a plateau, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, right, okay, right? Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes shorter. All right, wonderful. Anyone else? Okay, so yes, Sandy.
Well, I was just going to say that for me, I found ways to connect with people. So it was kind of through a Zoom room to watch services, and that was really good. And then I had the rest of the day on my own, so on the holiday. And I listened to a sermon with my son. It was having those little connections. And I had come off the week where people were picking up their holiday bags, and I got to see a lot of people. So I guess I'm focused a lot on connecting, even in this, weird way of connecting that we're in. So, and I think I struggle with the heat voted dude. I still am struggling with it as a practice for me. So, I mean, that's just to put that out there.
I thank you for saying so, because you're probably not the only one, Sandy. And that's fair. And it can mean like, stick with it, see how it goes, or it could just mean, there are so many practices you can do. And if this one, you feel like you're continually kind of working at it and it's not working for you, that's totally fine. It's totally fine too. And yes, to human connection, so much. We just all need it so much. Yes, David.
So I've been having trouble with the Hispodadut. I connect stuff to my running, and I just generally have a mantra, and it's generally, actually it's the, before you put the talit on, that whole little section. But this week it was to talk about what Sandy was just saying. All that kept coming up was, oh Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes Benz? And it's not because I want a Mercedes Benz, but I really liked the camaraderie, the closeness, the way the singer, just has this relationship to God. So that's what came up time after time for me to do.
I love that. I'm gonna, you've influenced my teaching forever. How could I have not thought of Janis Joplin as a perfect model, a prayer hero of Hispodadut? Truly, I mean, that's exactly right. That's exactly right, because from wherever we are, sharing our concerns, right? That's what it's all about. Thank you. That's a great image and soundtrack. 1 second. What? Okay. You may be hearing some background noise from a shower soon, but hopefully it won't be bothersome. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I'm gonna suggest that we dive into our prayer hero for the week. I will say that I switched it. I originally thought we would be looking at either Isaiah, but I realized Isaiah's really talking to other people. Isaiah's not really talking to God. And then I thought about the Kohen Gadol, who is such a fascinating figure with such fascinating prayer experiences that are so important. And he does directly address the divine over and over. But I thought it's not in Hispodadut. He's not crying out, right? And then it was just so clear who our prayer hero had to be. Jonah, right? Because Jonah's not looking for any of this. Jonah has not been doing Hispodadut for all of Elul and preparing himself. He's been trying to run away. He's been doing everything he can to get out of this relationship. God keeps talking to him and he keeps trying to turn away, right? And yet, there are going to be two parts, hopefully, that we look at today. One, where he's in the belly of the whale. And finally, when he's in that inner sanctuary, right? I actually compare, if you end up going to the Beth Sholom contemplative service with me and Rabbi Russell, talk about how, whether you're like the Kohen Gadol and you prepare and you prepare and you prepare, or whether you're like Jonah and you are trying to run away from it, in both cases, they both end up in this inner sanctuary, right? And it's when you're in that inner sanctuary that you have to decide what it is you're going to say. And so we're going to look today at what Jonah's going to say, right? What Jonah comes to say to God when he's in that inner mikdash of the belly of the whale. And then if we have time, we'll also look at, he doesn't stop talking to God there. We almost wish he did. But what he does in chapter 4. And so I'm going to post the link to the sources in the chat. Hopefully you all got them. and we will go into Chavruta. And the questions really are similar. What are your questions? When does he speak to God each time? How does he speak to God? What does he want to say? And then the question that you've probably, if you've ever been in shul on Yom Kippur for Mincha, you've heard addressed in every sermon ever said then, why do we read this on Yom Kippur and Mincha? Why is this what we need at that moment? And so let's take, it's not going to be enough, but let's take 15 minutes. And feel free to ask me questions. Wonderful. Oh, welcome back, everybody. Okay, so Jonah, our prayer hero. Any questions, comments, reflections on his hitbodedut?
One thing that I didn't talk about my room, but it just really reminded me of a psalm. I mean, his words were really like King David's. I just thought it was, you know, the heartfelt nature and whatever of it. That just kind of jumped out at me.
I think that's really right. And maybe even on two levels. Like, on one hand, up until this time with this character, all we've seen is like almost this pettiness, you know, he just keeps, you know, like, okay, it's me, guys, on the ship, throw me out, you know, like there's no poetry really happening from him. And then all of a sudden, you know, from the belly of the fish, maybe we would expect from this guy some kind of like petulant, you know, grumblings, but instead he opens up into this beautiful poetry, right? And to me, what was, and is always almost continually shocking, is gratitude. You know, his gratitude, you know, pours out of him, and his connection to God in these beautiful words that sound like psalms. And so if anything, it might be a clue to, oh, this is why maybe God picked this guy, right? Because otherwise he seems like such kind of a not promising character or prophet, I should say. Yeah, Ruth.
You know, I was thinking about, yes, at a certain moment, you know, he's very poetic and really expresses gratitude, but it's just like we are, you know, the minute something really special happens, we go back to our pettiness and minor complaints, and we forget about the big picture. And I think he is a reminder how quickly, how difficult it is to hold on to the gratitude and to get stuck in our micro lives and the minor ways in which we get annoyed and feel sorry for ourselves.
I totally agree, Ruth. And that's actually why I decided, I kind of went back and forth about whether to include chapter 4 or not. And then I thought that was exactly right. That's part of the point that we're being taught on this incredibly spiritual day, right? When we've given up, you know, food, and we're, you know, praying, and it's so much is going on, you know, in a normal year. Everyone be careful this year, right, in all ways. And then, you know, by the end of it, he's just back to his kind of petty self, you know, and specifically the thing that seems to tee him off is his comfort, right? Which is such a, it gets almost all of us, you know, like, ugh, I can take anything as long as I'm comfortable, but take my comfort away, ugh, right? So thank you for that. Yes, Arlette.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit. So what struck me is that he is so much talking towards God, and some of the others did it also. And you know, I was just listening to a talk with Rev James yesterday, and where his opinion is really like, you know, God is you. There's no separate God, but the God is more like, okay, let I mean, you let everything go from you. What's there? What's really the true you? And God, and in that sense, it's also something collective in all of us. And so it's just interesting also in my own prayer to think, okay, is there this external God, or is it just something that you need as a mirror that like lets you see who you are? And so it's really interesting how in this case with Jonah, it's clearly like, okay, there's an external God that has kind of chosen him to put him in this whale or whatever. Well, that's kind of opposite to how I feel prayer, in that, kind of everybody is actually chosen for prayer, but there are moments in your life that suddenly you realize that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that beautiful comment. I feel like, one thing that happens in our prayer experiences, whether they're communal or something like Hit Bodedut practice, is we start actually noticing where we are locating the one to whom we are speaking, right? So sometimes there's a feeling, if you're davening in the chapel, right, or in the sanctuary, right? Oh, I'm facing the ark, right? I'm facing that, like God is in that direction, right? Or the heavens, right? All of these ways of saying God is elsewhere, right? Or in a very certain located place. And as I said in the beginning, sometimes that's useful and helpful because it's like, oh, I'm here. This is the God place. And you open up to it. But I feel like as you do this practice, or even in Minyan, right, in the same place, sometimes you realize that the prayer is not going out somewhere, right? But the prayer might be to a deeper part in yourself, right? It might be heading inwards, right? And all of these ways, Rabbi Dr. Art Green talks about this a fair amount in a beautiful way, of the transcendent God, right? The God that's out there somewhere, versus the immanent God with an A. The God that is immanent in us always there, right? And so I think that's a really interesting practice question, right? When you're praying, where is it being directed? And you can play with that. You can play with how you want to direct it, or just even noticing how you are directing it. Yeah, Stuart.
Yeah, I really appreciated the selection of these two paragraphs because from a spiritual practice, they both, to me at least, show two extreme situations and two extremely different environments. One is calling out for life, and the other one is a reminder of what existed before God created the world and before God created man. And specifically what I'm referencing is I never thought of the whale as the behemoth that's indicated by many to be something that existed before God created the earth, before God created the world, before God created man. Presumably the ocean was there and the behemoth was there. So I like the environment, especially on Rosh Hashanah, of being in a place where you're kind of pre-creation. You're focusing on something that's not alive and not worldly, which you do some of the time when you're in spiritual practice. And the second paragraph really struck me because that's an environment where God is saying, wait a second, don't give up your life so quickly and don't die so quickly. I mean, how do you think I feel, with all the things that I've created? Should I want to quit? So the second paragraph was, a commentary about, don't give up life so easily.
I think that's exactly right. Yes. Yeah. I think that's exactly right. Linda, yes.
I'm going to follow on what Stuart said. I loved his bringing up in our group the image of the behemoth and the primordial waters. And I want to say that having read this a number of times before, but today I was really struck by the power of the first sections, Jonah's, the description of what it is like to be completely overwhelmed, and the use of the imagery of water and flooding and the despair that comes from being so totally out of control. We've all been in deep despair at some point in our lives, and this is, for me, resonated more deeply than anything I've read about how that feels to be out of control and yet still having a sense that you can call out to God and that he will be there, or it will be there, sorry, she will be there. So the whole thing of the origins of creation too was a really deepening thing that Stuart mentioned. And that is the sense of the origins of creation, and this out of control, especially water imagery. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I actually, at the beginning of the summer took a whole class on looking at imageries of the deep, the Tehom, and how it connects in Hebrew, the root Tehomiyah, to yearning, right? And that there's so much about our prayer lives that is actually not about the heavens, right? But connecting to the depths. And one of our best images for the depths, right? The unplumbed depths is water, right? And then when you link it back up with the primordial, it's a great set of images. I agree. And I also think that, just to say before we move on to Hippolyte text, I really think that this piece too about choosing life is central, right? I think there's a sense here where it's almost a question that we're being offered, right, at Mincha of Yom Kippur. And it's really like, do you really want to keep living? If you're not going to get to control the conditions, and you're going to just have to go along with whatever unfolds, are you up for this? Right? Are you Jonah? Or are you Zochreinu L'chaim? You know? Melech Hafetz B'chaim. You know? Kodveinu B'sefer HaChaim. L'mancha Elokim Chayim, right? Are we going to choose life? And I really think, you know, this year it's going to be such an interest. It's just, we see as much as we can see, you know, this life that we can't count on. So many things we thought we could count on. Are we still up for really fully engaging it? And I think Jonah asks us that question. You know, I really do think that that's part of what he's doing there. So I want to do a few other things. Any other, one or two other comments though, or questions if there is on Jonah. I don't want to rush too much. Okay. All right. So on your sheets, I was really excited about this, this text for Hippolyte from Chaye Maharan. Today I am starting. I thought it was kind of a perfect last class Hippolyte text, because it sort of reminds us that wherever we are in this practice, we're always just starting. We're always just starting it again each morning. And that's sort of what he says here in this text. During your Hippolyte, it is good to say, and of course this means say out loud, right? Today, which for us is Hayom, right? The end of the Musaf service, Hayom. Today, I am starting to attach myself to you. Just today, make a new start each time, because everything that comes later is always in accordance with the beginning, meaning you get a new beginning every single day. And by saying, today I am starting to attach myself, today I am rebuilding this relationship. And whatever you bring with you that day, that can come through. No matter what happens, it is always good to make a new start each time and say, today I am beginning. If things were already good, now they will be even better. And if they were not good before, then you certainly need to start anew. I love this Talmudic thinking, right? Like, what could be bad? If things are already going well, okay, so they'll continue to go well. And if they haven't been going well, you need to start over anyway, right? And so I think this idea of Hayom, of today I'm going to start anew, is a great spiritual practice to actually be saying that to God, because it might actually also seep into other parts of our lives, other relationships that feel more intractable and that they can't change. And perhaps if we start saying out loud to the divine, or to ourselves in the divine, or to the divine in ourselves, however you want to say it, today I am starting a new attachment. Maybe it will allow that echo in a difficult relationship. Today I'm starting something new, right? And maybe create new space. Maybe that's an interesting habit or spiritual practice edge to work with. Any questions, thoughts? Yes, Judah.
Rabbi Nachman also has a saying, don't complain to God saying things are bad, because God will say, you think this is bad? I'll show you bad. On the other side, if you say to God, thank you, God, this is so good, God will say to you, you think this is good? Wait till I show you a really good.
Okay, great. Well, may it be so. May we be able to control the Holy One so easily. Wonderful. Any other questions or thoughts about this? Stuart?
Yeah, I apologize for getting off subject, but I just can't neglect mentioning this to the group during our last class and just before Yom Kippur. If you get an opportunity, or definitely take the opportunity to Google Boris Johnson's message to the Jewish community in Britain. It is incredible. It is sensitive. It is beautiful. I didn't think I needed Boris Johnson to make me feel prouder of being part of the Jewish community, but he succeeds in doing that. And a very unlikely source. I mean, we mostly have this, from early on in his career, this negative impression of a Trump lookalike and wannabe. Well, he's anything but, a Trump wannabe. And like I say, if you get a chance, Google Boris Johnson, listen to his video. It's just amazing. And it's just so interesting that this comes from England, because George Eliot's book, Daniel Deronda, written by a Gentile, is one of the most powerful statements I've ever read, bar none, of why you should be proud to be part of the Jewish community. And she wrote that, in the earliest stages of Zionism. So I apologize for being off subject, but it's just before Yom Kippur and it's our last class. I wanted to get that in.
All right. Well, thank you, Stuart. And I felt somewhat similarly wanting to get something in. I have a poem for you that I put in. I'd just like to direct your attention to on the document by Stanley Chet Hineni. And I just thought that it was a very beautiful example of Hitbodedut itself in some ways. And I'm not going to read it, but you have it. And just by saying, here I am again, right? I'll just read the beginning and the end. Without much to offer by way of moral worth, I have a rich collection of defeats. Maybe that's to your liking. I don't know. Do you? If I'm to be quite frank, your likes and dislikes have never been all that clear to me. And then I'm jumping through to the end. So here I am again, praying for some modest bravery so that I can go on saying to you, here I am again, right? And so it's that same feeling of like every time, all that you're responsible for is just showing up, right? And whatever comes out, whatever your hineni is just being with it. And I think that's really helpful prayer advice in Hitbodedut, and perhaps life advice. So as we're in the last moments, I do want to just express my sincere gratitude. I have absolutely taken delight in these meetings and preparing for these meetings. It's just been so helpful to my own preparation and my own sense of community. So I thank you for your real engagement and participation. And I'd love for closing our time together, first of all, to say, I hope Hitbodedut takes up, whatever role in your life is helpful. Now that our class is over, we don't have the same kind of community and check-ins, and that can be really useful. Maybe this is a time to continue. Maybe this is a time to stop and later you'll pick it up. I suggest you have no guilt or expectations around that. And maybe it will be a useful tool to bring with you into Yom Kippur in some way. And then I would love to, instead of doing our normal sort of offering a word of what we've experienced or what we need or what we would like to offer the group, I'd love to just maybe sharpen it a bit and suggest one words as an intention for continuing to move through 5781, right? For what we can all bring into Yom Kippur and into Sukkot and beyond. So I'll give you a moment just to think about what you'd like to offer. And then, as is usual, I will go in the order on my screen, and I invite you to unmute. Judah.
Emunah.
Wonderful. Stuart.
Choose life.
David. Oh, we need you unmuted. David, can you unmute? Okay. David, we can't hear you. Oh, there you are. Yes.
Thankfulness.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. From Catherine, we have reframing. Yes, Arlette.
Go down.
Linda.
Transformative.
Jeannie.
Plant seeds.
Betsy.
New beginning.
Sandra, but we need you to unmute.
How's this? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just show up and immerse yourself in whatever is.
Ellen.
Awareness.
Sandy.
Gratitude.
Ruth.
I was thinking gratitude and openness.
Miriam.
Gratitude and renewal.
And I will continue to say community. Thank you for being a community
you're wonderful.
of study and practice. And Gamar Chatima Tova, may we all be sealed into the book of life with a zest for meeting life as it comes to us.
Amen.
Tova.
Gemar Chatima Tova.
Thank you all so much.
Eating full fast.
Easy fast.
Yes.
Eating full.
Oh, God, help us all day in our house.